Good morning, good morning, good morning. My name is Mary Ward Cater. I was known as Mary Ward when I'm about to do this piece. I was asked to give some history on when we went to Washington Street Elementary School. Well, I was a little girl, and I'm going to do bits and pieces of it. The history. We used to have to walk down this street. It was a red dirt road, or up the street. And you see me driving. Well, it was just this far that we had to walk to be educated. Right over here is where Miss Betsy Ronner lived. Now it's more sophisticated now, but she had a trailer over there, and her house, and her little sanctified church that was over there. Yeah, she was a sanctified preacher. She was given an ultimatum to do something, and I feel in order for me to give you the history from Washington Street Elementary School, I have to tell you how we got there. Yeah, and for some reason, folks are always coming to me for history, and I hated history. Francis, and I forget his last name, from Atlanta Journal and Constitution, when I did the project on the Mabel House, and we had to find those slave descendants before they could build that $11 million amphitheater. I was selected as a liaison as a young girl to work with Phil McLemore, who was the first county manager that I knew of, and Harold Glore, and the different ones, old community. And they would, yeah, I'm still riding. This how far we had to walk. So they got me, and I never knew why me. In my latter years, I learned that I was the great-granddaughter of Reverend G.W. Felker. Queensmere Road. My grandmother, there's a street over this way, Azalee Felker Ward, that she was named as Azalee Ward Felker, however her name was. Okay, there's a street over here that is named after her. Okay, this is Queensmere Road. I've walked down Ivy Road, which was an old dirt road. And Cobb County Board of Education said, Miss Ronna, if you can find a bus driver to drive the black children, we'll give you a bus. So they didn't know that they were messing with a preacher. Miss Bessie took them on. And she found us the bus driver, Lucius Brown. Lucius had a commercial driving whatever certificate that he could drive us. The other bus driver from out of the Powder Springs area, and that part, it was 3 cities that filtered into Washington Street Elementary School. It was Powder Springs, it was Austell, Mableton, and really what we call South Cobb County. So Miss Betsy went out and found the bus driver. They had to live up to their word too. They had to give her the bus. Might have been the oldest bus in the county, but we got a yellow bus that said school bus on it. They had desegregated them. They had desegregated the schools. They had put the term elementary onto black children's name. So instead of colored schools, we had the term elementary. Instead of being able to go only to the 3rd grade, we were able to go all the way, graduate, and go to college. It's important that you know what 3rd grade meant. The colored schools meant. That was as high as a child was supposed to go, to the 3rd grade in the colored schools. Okay, Washington Street Elementary School was a colored school. Okay, Green Grove, another area that I've spoke of on my Facebook, was where the colored school was in Mableton, Austell, which was Route 1. Me being the age that I was when I went on to the Improvement Association with Mr. Glore, Theo McLemore, different ones, had no earthly idea what they were doing, had no earthly idea who my granddaddy was, had no earthly idea what he did. I had to learn. So where I hated history, as Francis reported in the Atlanta Journal and newspaper, Atlanta Journal and Constitution newspaper, when I was working on the Mabel House project, I could not understand why those white folks came after me to work with history when I almost failed school because of history, black history. Okay, but there were some educators, Dario Wilson, Susan, Mary Anderson. Mary, thank you. I know you're still on my Facebook. Mary Anderson. Mary Anderson was the one that literally came after me and asked that I serve on the South Cobb Art Alliance Board. I'm wondering, this white lady don't even know me. Why is she coming after me? Why does she want me to work on it? And I didn't even like school. Mary Anderson did. She taught my children. I remember when Miss Billups was the first black after the Depression of 1933. After they signed the the Reconstruction Bill to serve as a principal down here in South Cobb County, a black woman, as we're coming up on Women in History Month, y'all, which is March. Well, Lucius Brown was our bus driver. Those black men, their job was to get us to the school. And that's what they did. Couldn't understand why they were so dedicated, why they were so honest, loved us. Lucius didn't even have children then. And his children are on my Facebook now. But that man, I think they ought to name the book after him, Lucius Brown. They need to write one on bus drivers. Those are important people that get your children to school. Safe, sound. When they cussing on them buses, I was a crossing guard too. When they cussing on them buses, pulling knives out on them, and they had to put cameras on them, parents, you ought to be glad. It helps you and it helps the children, but it helps them bus drivers too. Them bus drivers go through hell trying to get your children to school. Yes, thank you, Lord. I said it. Lucius would drive us to school. I hated with my soul walking all that distance in the mud. Don't let it rain. Sometime when it didn't rain, they could come through there. But Lord, when it rained, it was a mudslide. You couldn't get them buses through Ivy Road. and through these black sections. But you know what? Them men meant to educate us. Miss Betsy Runner, they were so mad at Miss Betsy, they even sent Environment Protection Agency after Miss Betsy. Okay, yeah, I'm mentioning the Environmental Protection Agency back in the 70s and the 80s. You don't know what I had to fight through. And I don't even know why I was fighting through it to help the people. I got to be honest with you. Because my dad and my mom, we didn't really want for nothing. So, but I learned from a former governor, Roy Barnes. He said, it ain't about you. It's about the mass of people. I didn't know what the mass of people, I was sheltered. I had to learn things as I worked. I didn't know what the mass of people meant. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you worked for the mass of people, the big picture of people. I didn't know that, people. I had to learn. Thank God I worked at Georgia State Bank, where the first financial agreement was signed in the nation for the NAACP and civil rights by yours truly, Hands, who wrote it. And if you look in Dr. Tom Scott's book, under race relations. I didn't even know what race relations mean. I didn't even know what race meant. I didn't know. I'm sorry. It's bad that I'm having to have to tell on myself. But I worked for the bank. And I remember Miss Betsy used to have a safety deposit box. She didn't put all her money in the bank. Old folks' money went in their safety deposit boxes. And Miss Betsy would walk into the bank. Everybody knew that preacher. A woman preacher at that. You know, we couldn't do that. And they told Miss Betsy, you get a bus driver, we'll give you the bus. We had all them elected officials, Steve Thompson, Roy Barnes, they was Democrats then, not whatever. Okay, they worked for the mass of the people. So Miss Betsy got the bus, and the bus started coming to pick us up. Before then, if you go to Kennesaw State University, book by Dr. Tom Scott, and what I like about Tom and Kathy, his wife, Kathy was a historian too, is that they did 49 books. If you go up under the Oral History Project, spearheaded by a lady named Deanne Bonner. Deanne and I couldn't stand each other a little bit, but we loved each other because we were both powerful women. But I'm telling you something, that lady didn't count it robbery to own and to describe people that built Cobb County, black folks, to put us in the news, in the media, and in the history books. Dr. Tom Scott wrote 40, they transcribed. You can hear it on online in our voices. They transcribed us on tapes. Then they turned around and wrote a book, and they named, and if you've never been to Kennesaw State University, you need to go there, black folks, in Cobb County and the United States, and see the Black History Project, spearheaded by Miss Deanne Bonner. A book I guess there's one up there on her, but they need to put a monument up there on her, okay? Because that's where that project came from. And Dr. Tom and Kathy, and the students of Kennesaw State University history, genealogy, That's where the books came from. They asked me, why did you include white judges in the book? We just wanted black folks. When you read of an Adele Grubbs, James Bodiford, now it's not a book on Mary Staley, but she was a history teacher. When you read about some of the ones and what they contributed to our community, the NAACP was started by a white woman. It was not just black people's in the struggle. It was all people in the struggle. That's why the name of it is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Okay, there were people of color. I like what President Biden is doing now. He specifically said a black woman. Okay, until you include the term a black woman, you've not included all people of color. Normally they go after people of bilingual, biracial, whatever, and they put them as black. But this time he said a black woman. I hope he get Lee Award Sears. Okay, but I'm talking about a pure black woman that is the descendant of and none of us are total descendants because all of us kin to each other. That's what I found out when I worked the Mabel House Project. Well, Miss Betsy got the bus driver. I attribute all of it to Miss Betsy Runner and all of the parents connected on to her in the South Cobb area. They say go get a bus driver. She went and found Lucius Brown. He drove our bus. He drove us to school. We were able to go from Green Grove, and one of the books that I told you about, my sister Gwendolyn Dillard wrote. My sister was 20 years older than me. My mom and dad had 14 children. Gwendolyn was the oldest of all of us. And Gwendolyn, my dad had to put her in my other great-granddad's school in Atlanta, which was Scott's Colored School, Scott's Crossing Colored School. So Gwen went to that school and before desegregation, and she couldn't go to school in Cobb County, okay, because black folks couldn't do that. So my dad would bring her over here on the weekends, take her back to Scott's Crossing for school time to be up at the colored school and go to school and be educated. Now, and I'm doing lots of history on it because I'm doing it, I understand, for the mayor of Austell, Georgia. I'm working with Miss Carner, who is a young student that came out of Pebblebrook in 1991. Okay, I don't know her personally, but I don't mind giving the history. It's kind of like the Synoptic Gospel. I'm an evangelist too. The four Gospels tell four people's stories, just a little worded. So to my Facebook friends on Washington Street Elementary, we invite you to share your old pictures. We invite you to, if you got videos, if you got tape, we know you don't have video because they didn't have none back then. But if you got history, books, because some of them moved here. Some of them don't know about this area. Thank God. For the first time out of the 5 colored schools that was in Cobb County, Washington Street was the only one left out. And now they're trying to do history on it. Thank you, Jesus. Out of the 5, you had Ackworth, you had Rose Garden Hill, and I can't name all of them, but I know them because I got the book. But you had Washington Street Elementary. I'm going to go there and do a piece today, and I'll share that with you also. But Lucius was our bus driver, and I got to tell you how he got us to school for you to know the history at the school when we got to the school. And this same history is the history for the Mabel House before they could build that $11 million amphitheater. As I was beginning to say, I don't know why they always came to me, but I think what I learned was because I was the great-granddaughter of George William Felker, who was an accountant, who was a black man that couldn't go to the colored school, but Green Grove, because of the color of his skin. And he married a white woman, Laura Shields. Okay, in our family cemetery is the remains and the body of G.W. Felker, Laura Shields, the white woman, my great-grandmother, and G.W. Felker's mother, okay, that came out of Walton County by way of Griffin, Georgia. Okay, and I didn't know all of that. So when Phil McLemore got me onto the Mableton Improvement Association, which I had no earthly idea why, it was because my great-grandfather, G.W. Felker, worked for them. He could interchange and be white or black. It was only at his death that he was a colored man. And he could not be buried at Green Grove because he had a white wife. And he could not go to school at Green Grove because of the color of his skin. He was white or German. And so my sister Gwendolyn could not come across that river and go to school over here in Cobb County. She had to go to the colored school in Fulton County. Although my dad and mom had built a house over here. So you have to get Gwendolyn's book. I tell her children, which is over 100 grand down through the generations, shame on you if we did all of this history and you don't have the courtesy to go get your own grandma's book or to go online. You don't even have to drive. You can just go online. I would build from that book. She tells the story of how she couldn't go to school before desegregation in Cobb County and how Samuel and Thelma Ward fought for her to be educated. And my sister, my oldest of all of us, was an educated woman. In her old age, she went back to school and got her degrees. Her children are smart, but they think they smart not because of her, but they're smart because of her roots, her seeds, what she did to better family. And so Lucius was our bus driver. And on my next video, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how he got us to school. Thank you.